So that was my train of thought. Right. FGET versus scanf. Now we're gonna see it. Let's see how we can read a line, sorry, read a file with multiple lines of text. Okay? And I'll show you all a case where fscanf is nice and useful, but I still prefer fgets, and I'll show you how to do it in fgets. And that might take up the next hour and some of class. All right. All right. So let's have a text file, and let's name this text file multlines.txt, right? Multlines.txt. And we have multiple lines of text in our file. Andre, right? Andre, give me say something for me to write. Is so Andre trying to win points here, right? Alexandra, I see how hard it is to come up with when somebody calls your name, right? Just drawing a blank. Can't say anything. What? Wait, I'm putting that out. You're way too cocky. Right? Real. What? Sir will get his bribe money. Are you want putting this on the video? Oh my god. Kyra. You know what I learned from this exercise? I learned that class involvement is overrated. Right? Learn that sometimes it's better for the teacher to just simply just.
You learn that it's a pretty cool class.
But
you also learn that you're copy.
Yeah, that's it, right?
And that your bike's still going.
And my bike's still going, and now they have bribe money talk on a video and all kind of thing.
Why only two subjects?
I'm gonna have to edit this video before I put it up on YouTube. It's just all right. So we have 4 sentences, and we're gonna read these 4 sentences using using f gets, because it's gonna be pretty simple to do, and I wanna show you all how to read multiple lines. Okay, so I'll name this mult line file read.c. Okay. So what does this do? This program this program reads multiple lines of text from a file using fgets. And I'm not afterwards. I'm telling you, we're gonna use a scanf, but I really want you all to be able to be a little versatile with fgets. Return 0. Okay. So again, we start off by having our file pointer file fp. We say fp is equal to fopen. And what's our location of the file? d:\\backslash file lock multlines.txt. And I'm opening it to read. And when I'm opening it to read, get into the habit of saying if FP is equal to null, just like we did before. Printf file read error. Okay, getcha, and then exit. This is going to spare you some pain when you start to do your assignment, because of the fact that you might be under the assumption, without it, you might be under the assumption that the file is reading and the error exists somewhere else in your code, and you trying to figure out, well, why is it that you're getting this particular error when it is the error starts from the fact that you're not even you're not even you know, reading the information from the file. Okay? So some of these things are to safeguard you yourself as the programmer. What I like to do is I like to run it at this point, exit 0, sorry. I like to run it at this point. I did not get any message saying file read error. So I know that it's reading the file. It's at least seeing the file. Okay, so any errors on it from this point on are probably because of the fact that you know, you wrote something wrong with respect to reading from the file. We know that we need to have a line, right, to read a line of text. So this is the variable that will read a line from the file. And now this is where it becomes a little interesting. In your file, there are some invisible characters. When you have a file of text, let's say this is file.txt, and I have A, B, C, D. I'll have my \n here. That's an invisible character, not so? Right? E, F, G, H, I, J, \n, K, L, M, N, O. And this is where my file ends. There is an invisible character called the end of file character, EOF. Okay, so yes, you might have seen it, that end of file character. And what this does, it tells the computer that the file stops here. You can think of it like a \0 for a file. Okay? It does the same thing. Like how a \0 would work for a string, it does this for a file. So, what we want to do is that we want to say while in equal to file end of file. This is a function for FP. While we have not hit the end of file character in FP. So what it says here is while in equal to the end while we have not met the end of file character in the file. So while in equal to end file end of file FP, what do we want to do? We want to read a line of text from the file. So we say fgets %, s, sorry, not percent, what am I doing? Line, comma, 200, comma, FP. Read a line from the file. And then I could also just print that line one time, right? Printf, print the line to the screen. So I have %, s. And I'll put line here. And it'll continue looping until eventually I get to the end of file character. Okay? So I might have to rework this to start reading from outside, but we'll see. All right, so let's run. Oh no, it worked as it should. Okay, so all the contents of the file came out. This is reading this file using fgets. But let's try and read this file using fscanf. And we will see where it kind of falls short in that regard. So I'm going to do almost the same thing. Save this as file mult line with fscanf.c. Are these names getting long? Okay, so I have exactly up to where I check to see if the file exists. Okay? And now I want to read with fscanf. So, and let me just remember to close my file. And now we have multiplying with fscanf. And I'm doing the same thing except I'm doing it with fscanf. So, again, I have this. And I say fscanf. Right? Percent sign S, comma line. All right, so yes, FP, comma line. Good looking out. Thanks. All right. And I want to print out the contents of line. And then F close, FP. Compile, right. So it looks similar. Let's see what comes out as output. All right. Yes. Slash n line. See what happens there? Kind of read everything in its own kind of read everything in its own line. Right? It doesn't really it kind of put the string, each string, because what happens with fscanf is fscanf would read up to a space or a \n. So we have text in this file. But what I'm saying essentially with fscanf is read the word computer and store it in line. Then read the word science and store it in line. Read the word is and store it in line. Read the word a and store it in line. Read the word, you all got the idea. Right? And again, for a text file that was made up of sentences, we kind of just get everything word by word. Now, there are instances where we could exploit this with fscanf. Because let's say, for instance, we go back to that same manipulating data for the structs. Let's say, for instance, we had some pet information inside of a text file. Okay, we have name, species, sex, weight, and date of birth. Okay. I'm gonna just I'm just gonna to slim it down to name, sex, and weight. Okay, in the interest of time. Please. Pass up to next thing. All right. Fluffy, male, 267 pounds. Snuffles, female, 167 pounds. What's some other animal names? Bush? Butch. Oh. Is Butch male or female? Male. How much does Butch weigh in pounds? Is Butch a big dog or a little dog? 214?
Yeah, they have something funny, sir.
14 or 48? 14.
So, yeah, they have something funny. So, you have to say something, right?
Uh,
And if we go back to this one before, I said, oh, we should just do big and small.
no, but the weight is, what is up with
No, you just actually she do big or tiny. So easy that would have been. You had to give
Yeah, but you can't, from a medical perspective, you can't just say big or small. I'm not fat shaming any animal. Why we have so much woke animals? Right? Animals are worried about gender and size.
Because
Just,
the animal gender fluid and
jeez, and ages.
it's a plus size.
You're gonna get me fired. What's the next animal? Tank?
Tank.
Tank is a what? Is a boy? It's a what? Ah. And what's tank size? 500, but I don't know what animal this is. Ah. Let's let's pause here. So we have this data here. And what is nice about this is that we can simply now go to our compiler. Let's create a struct really quickly. Look at how much code we're creating in this one class. This is a heavy class. Yeah, I know, right? Nah. What we name this one? We name this one. We could get a little break in 5-10 minutes after we finish this, right? Uh, huh? Oh no, not that wicked anymore. What? Dog file dot c. Sorry.
You sure that last one is a no?
Yeah.
How do we come out like what?
Listen. All right. So we want to create a struct. So we have type define struct. What A, right? And this is animal. And what information are we storing about animal? We store the char name, right? So the name could be up to 60 characters. All right, char sex and int weight. So we store the information on the name, the sex, and the weight. Do we have multiple animals in this file? Yes, we do. And we want to read all of this information into the struct? Yes, we do. Okay, so think about it. The name of the struct means that the information is structured. Eh? We have some structured information coming in, right? So we say animal list, and let's say we have provision to get up to 25 animals. Cool? Okay, we'll have an int, that is an I, and now we want to read this information from the file into the struct. We have a file pointer, file fp, a file pointer. We say fp is equal to fopen. What was the name of our pets.txt? Right? We use some absolute referencing. And we opening this for reading alone. Okay? We say if fp is equal to null. Man, I could just copy and paste this. Yeah. Who am I trying to impress? You all know that we all lazy here, right? All right. So we say this, we run it at this point just to make sure that we don't get any errors regarding reading the file. So we know that the file is being read because let's take a look. If I had a error in the file name here, I will get file read error. Okay? If it runs to the end without file read error, well, all my code is saying so far is to read the file and stop. Or at least to identify that the file exists as a thing, right? Good. So next up, now we want to use fscanf. The purpose of this is to use fscanf, and this is probably the only time I will be using fscanf to read stuff into the file. In subsequent classes, I use fget. It's just the way that I do it. You could go ahead and use scanf for SBA. If you do it, it makes sense and it works. You're not going to lose any marks because I know that it exists and it's good code, right? It's just for my teaching purposes, I like to use fgets and let people tokenize the data. I find it allows you to work with the data in a much cleaner manner. In reality, it's just a preference. Okay? Saying that. So again, we go and we want to read information into the struct from the file. So we say while n equal to file and the file for fp. What do we want to do? We want to what do we want to do? We want to say fscanf fp, comma, and look at the formatting of this file. This file contains data where I have a string, a single character, and an integer. So I read a string, a single character, and an integer in. Where am I reading this into? I is equal to 0. I'm reading it into list at position I dot name, comma, ampersand list at position I dot sex, comma, ampersand list at position I dot weight. Please note when you are reading using a string, using scanf or fscanf, you do not put the ampersand in front of an array, which is a string. But if it is that you're doing it for a single character or an integer, you have to put the ampersand. Cool? That's just the rules. If you don't like it, you can contact Mr. Dennis Ritchie and tell him that you didn't like his programming language. Okay? Huh? I know. Right? Alright. So we have this being read in here. So the next thing that we have is that, of course, we want to say I plus plus because we don't want the information being read in the same place. And then we could use a separate variable j to verify that the information from the file, after we fclose fp, we could say for what? For j is equal to 0, semicolon, j is less than I, semicolon, j plus plus. What are we doing here? We're reading all of the information from that same struct that we just read information from the file into. Okay? We read information from the file into the struct, and now we're going to display it from the struct to the screen. This is important because we could now manipulate information in the struct and write it back to the file if we want. But we're not there yet. I just want that first part where we say, hey, we're taking information from the file. So we say, and again, just because I am lazy, all this just to save writing a couple of characters. But it's easier to delete than it is to write, not so? Right. Oh, gee. That's right. So we have the information being read in some way. Let's see. I'm putting a \n here. Right. Fluffy M267. Why is some extra data being printed out? So it's reading what's in the file, but I'm getting extra data printing out that should not print out. Hmm? After the scanf, I don't think you need one. Hmm? Oh, what, this? Nah, yeah, this is for the counter. Trying to figure out why I'm getting this extra data at the end here. Percent sign C. We read it into sex, read it into weight. Let me see the format of the file. 267. Oops. Ah, that is a problem there. Okay. All right. So we're getting the data. It's just that we're getting some extra data. So I might have to take a look as to what I need to clean it up. List that position G.name, list that position G.sex, list that position G.weight. Let me just put asterisks around them to see which one of these printing out the extra data. Wow, it's actually printing out more. Oh, no. Look here, yes. We have a problem here because it's reading the whole thing in as the string. So what I need to do is I need to remove this and put this with spaces. So it read the whole line in as a string. Alright? Take out this, spaces here, and hopefully this should remedy it. Yeah, it did. Okay? So that's why I'm saying fscanf is very, very delicate. Because if you have a string that you want to represent as a string, you have to make sure that there is some breaking space character after the end of the string that makes it such that, it's not reading in the whole string. So it was reading in till the end of the line, and then what was happening was that, the actual single character and the integer wasn't reading. But by putting it into, well, this up to this space is a string, then up to this is a single character, and up to this is an integer, then the computer knew exactly what it had to do. Everybody understands what I did there and why I got the error initially and how I fixed it? Okay, all right. Well, I guess we could go for a little bit. I mean, if